Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the State of Vue, fantastic event hosted by This.dot Media. Today's sponsor is This.dot Labs. This.dot Labs is a parent company of This.dot Media. We specialize in JavaScript, JavaScript consulting, JavaScript staff augmentation, and we are your needs for any JavaScript-related work. We are very keen in helping the community, and we host our sister company, This.dot Media, hosts many events, one of which is the State of Vue that we are encountering and working on today. So thank you so much for This.dot Labs for the sponsoring. We do have a few events coming up. So the State of Vue is not the only one that we actually host. So we do have the State of Accessibility coming up that is actually happening next week. And then we got the State of the Angular Ecosystem on the 3rd of June, and the State of Automation on June 15. And then don't forget that there's a monthly mentoring for women in tech as well on the 19th of June. So plenty of events. You can find them all on this.co. And I will also paste the link in the chat later on today. So fantastic event, all driven, all really focused to the community, the JavaScript community. And today is nothing different than a fantastic event again. The host today is actually just myself. I do apologize. You have to get used to just hearing my voice. My name is Simone Cuomo, and I'm a software architect at This.dot Labs. My co-host, Tracy Lee, the CEO of This.dot Labs, could not actually join us, but you know our panelists will actually keep us quite entertained. So hopefully I won't have to speak much. Our panelists today are as such. We got Thorsten from the Vue core team. We got Evan. We got Evan, you as well.
Hello.
Some of you should actually know Evan. And we got Jessica as well. And this is not all. So this is the part of the Vue core team, but we actually got amazing other panelists that are part of the Vue ecosystem, what actually makes the Vue community great. So the first and foremost, we have John from Beautify. We have Luke from Quasar.
Hello, everyone.
And we got, hello, hi, Luke. And we got Maya from Cloudinary.
Hi.
And we got Daniel from Parent Scheme.
Hello. Yes, joining from Next.
Amazing. Good. So, as you may know, if you've joined this event before, the way we're going to work is each and every panelist will have some time to give a little updates on their part of the ecosystem. And then when the updates are completed, we will then go on with questions. So feel free to ask questions within the chat. If there are no specific questions, the panelists will be able to ask questions to each other, or we actually will, I will come up with some questions that I have, ready for our fantastic panelists. So the first one is actually going to be Evan, that is going to give an update on Vue. So I'm going to add your screen now, guys. That's all for you, Evan.
Cool, thank you. Hello, everyone. So today I'm just going to be giving a brief ecosystem updates for Vue-related projects, and a lot of this kind of ties into what I talked about a month earlier at VueConf US, but also some new progress made after that, essentially in the last month. So obviously 3.0 was released last year, so that's actually more than half a year ago, which is kind of crazy. So after release, there were two major themes that the team and the community has been focusing on. That is, first is obviously stabilizing the ecosystem around Vue 3. The next is DX experiments, because Vue as a framework, Vue Core is just part of it, right? So the whole framework is made up of all the tools that supports it surrounding it. So a lot of work went into the surrounding DX explorations as well. So regarding the ecosystem, Vue Router, Vuex are now both stable for Vue 3. As we will see from other presenters today, a lot of libraries are also catching up with their Vue 3 support. Quasar is already in beta. Element Plus in beta, and Design View is actually already stable. Beautify, beta soon. John will probably talk about it. Next 3, also beta soon. Daniel will probably talk about it. So exciting stuff coming up. So that is the ecosystem. So I want to focus a bit more on the DX side of things because that's kind of within the scope of the framework itself. Now, we are exploring a new build tools, a new DevTool extension, more ergonomic SFC syntax for single file components, and IDE TS support, right? Traditionally, we've been mostly focusing, so Vue 3 up to the release, we've been largely just focusing on the runtime, the compiler, the so-called library itself, right? But as a framework, we kind of have to think about what build tool do users to serve their application during development? How can they get the fastest feedback loop when they're working on a Vue project? How do they debug their application with the DevTools extension? How can we make authoring the same amount of logic more ergonomic inside Vue single file components? And how can we improve the IDE and TypeScript support for the single file components, which has traditionally been a major drawback of a custom file format, right? Because a lot of people think TS is great, so we're seeing increased usage of TS together with Vue as well. So that's a major point that we kind of want to tackle as well. All right, so new build tools, of course, Vite, right? We focus a lot of time into building Vite and improving it. If you haven't heard about Vite, head over to vitejs.dev and read about the intro page, the why it was created. So here I'm just going to be giving a very brief very brief description, right? It's a dev server built on top of native ES modules with extremely fast hot module replacement and extremely fast server startup time. We have heard many stories from our users migrating from Vue CLI, which is Webpack based, over to Vite and see their dev server startup time increase by several times faster. HMR also up to like 2 seconds down to 100 milliseconds. So that's a fundamental difference, right? So you should definitely check it out. Vite or Vue CLI, right? We get a lot of questions like this. So the idea here is Vue CLI will still be here. It's also going to be mostly for people who still need Webpack for some reason, but we do want them to converge in the long run. So we want to see the speed of Vite with the more comprehensive coverage of features that we see in Vue CLI, especially in terms of testing. So Soda, who is the maintainer of Vue CLI, will be looking into that. And single file components DX improvements, script setup. This is an open RFC that allows us to have a very succinct syntax when using composition API inside Vue single file components. As you can see, there's no need to export defaults with a setup, then declare, then return the object of the bindings that you want to expose to the template. You just declare a variable here and it will be usable inside the template. If you import a component, it will be usable in the template. If you declare a ref, it is also automatically derefed here, so you don't have to do dot value here. Check out the RFC. We will share the slides afterwards to see how it works. It also improves runtime performance and even type checking performance because how co-located this is. If you go to the sfc.vue.js.org, which is an online playground, it allows you to see the output. As you can see, the template actually compiles into an inline function which directly accesses the declared variable here. So there's no need to go through this dot proxy access to grab any of that because these variables are already in scope. It also actually makes type checking faster when you're using Volar. When you're using Volar with VS Code to get the IntelliSense. Style var injections. This is another RFC that allows you to use the special vbind syntax inside your CSS. This is actually valid CSS syntax, but we pre-process it so that we inject native CSS variables, custom CSS. Is it CSS variables or custom properties that we injected onto the root of the current element? So you get the benefit of dynamic CSS, but without the overhead of CSS in JS. There's no very little, close to zero runtime overhead with this approach, and we also don't bloat your CSS. And then there's Vue DevTools, right? One of the major things people want in the beta channel is one of the big problems that we previously had is the two channels, one only support Vue 2, one only support Vue 3. Now we have proper dual Vue 2, Vue 3 version support in the latest beta channel of the DevTools. Vuex integration is also going smoothly. I think we're gonna have official integration very soon. And the Vuex integration is in fact based on an extensible timeline view, which can actually display DOM events, Vuex submitted actions. You can even write your custom plugin to hook into it. So for example, Eduardo has been writing a custom extension that hooks into the timeline view with his Pinia library. So you can see Pinia actions locked into the DevTools timeline as well. And then there's performance profiling. So Guillaume is currently working on that. Some screenshots are pretty exciting. You'll be able to profile your Vue 3 applications to find performance bottlenecks. Yeah, and IDE and TS support. So a lot has been going on in the past. Like we've had Vader for a very long time. We've had Rahul has been exploring Vue.dx, and then Johnson has been working on Volar, right? So after a lot of explorations, we found that Volar's approach seems to provide the most efficient and stable TSX-like IDE experience for Vue single file components. Like this is the screenshot that from an actual project in the Vue Next repo, the single file component playground. As you can see, I imported this code mirror component, and because that component was returned with TypeScript, it was Volar is able to infer the type, the actual TypeScript types of the props that it expects. And of course, if I hover over here, you'll see the type of the active code in the current component. And if the type mismatches, you'll get TypeScript errors out of this. Now, you get this from the IDE, but you can also get this from the command line with Vue TSC. So this is a drop-in replacement of TSC so that you can do Vue TSC -- no emit to get the same to get the type checking for both TS files and single file components during your build. So you can do this on the CI to catch errors at build time. Now the plan is we want to converge our extensions into a single one. So it's likely going to be based on Volar. And we also want to officialize Vue TSC. So it's a recommended CI tool for you to get TypeScript information, type check your single file components. We do notice that not everyone uses VS Code, so the internals, in fact, is designed to support other editors via language service protocol. So it's technically possible. We don't have official integrations for other editors just yet, but the foundation of this whole implementation should be transplantable. Okay, in other news, IE11 support has officially been dropped. The RFC has been closed after discussions. We are seeing overwhelming support. And in other good news, I think Microsoft just also published a new post just today saying everyone should just use Edge if you're on Windows 10. IE11 is being retired, officially retired in 2022, I believe. So this means when we start a new project with Vue 3 plus Vite, it's going to be modern by default. We assume the baseline is ES 2015, evergreen modern browsers with native ES module support. So we can shed a lot of weight. We don't think, so if you just stick to the features that you know that doesn't need transpilation, you can completely drop off the transpilation step, right? maybe with some lightweight polyfills, but even that is often not completely necessary. Right? So this allows us to start very, very lean, modern by default, and only opt in for legacy mode. Right? So compared to our previous approach, say in Vue CLI, the approach was legacy by default with opt-in modern mode. But now we flip the whole thing around. It's modern by default, and legacy is legacy. It's opt-in. All right. So another major thing that we shipped just recently is the Vue 3 migration build, aka 3.1. So this is going to be the 3.1 release. It has a few other very minor features. 3.1 is currently in beta, so if you want to try it out, you have to explicitly opt in. So if you use a normal server range, it's not going to be installed by default. So you have to do a bigger than 3.1.0-0 to get the pre-releases, or you explicitly use the beta version. So what's the deal with the migration build? It behaves like Vue 2 by default, right? There are a lot of features in that's changed. If you've looked at the Vue 2 to Vue 3 migration guide, it may have been pretty intimidating because there are just so many things, right? So what the migration build does for you is when you swap Vue 2 with this, most of the features will just still work like Vue 2. So the more details in the actual documentation itself. So we have a dedicated table for all these things that have changed and their compatibility. So as you can see, all these black dots features are completely compatible in the migration build. So if your Vue 2 application is still using these features, it will just work. But it will emit a runtime warning. So you can look at your console, find these warnings, then change it to the Vue 3 syntax. Then you can either disable the compatibility behavior for this feature, or you can even do it on a per component basis, as demonstrated here. So in a component, you can use this compat config option to say, I want this component to be in Vue 3 mode or Vue 2 mode. And with the base mode, then I can also toggle an individual feature to be on or off. So this allows you to say, run your project in Vue 2 mode first, then migration single components to Vue 3 piecemeal, or alternatively, you can say, I'm going to, I don't want to read the whole guide. I'm just going to start a new project with this build, but I'm going to be defaulting in Vue 3 mode globally. Then whenever I have some old component, I can move it over, a Vue 2 component, I move it over into the new project, but I run that component in Vue 2 mode, right? So I can reuse old code, then update it piecemeal. So gives you a lot of flexibility in these regards. Now, obviously there are some limitations. It's not going to be covering 100% guaranteed compatibility because there might be libraries that rely on private or internal APIs of Vue 2, which we cannot really do. Okay, time is up. So, but really try it out. So what's next? 3.2. We're going to finalize some of the RFC that's still pending, more perf tuning, better custom elements, SSR improvements. So more details very soon. And 2.7 will come later this year, that backports composition API. So the hope is 2.7 will help you essentially prime your Vue 2 application. Then you can switch over to migration build and then get on proper Vue 3. So, but I mean, you can already use the migration build as for today, but 2.7 will probably make it even easier. Now, final big thing is we are planning to switch over all the defaults to Vue 3 by end of Q2 2021. That is end of June. So Vue 3 becomes the new default. That means the official documentation, the latest NPM tags, all the GitHub branches, they'll all point to the Vue 3 specific versions instead of the Vue 2 ones. We'll also probably have some pretty big overhaul for the documentation as well to essentially better design the introduction flow for veterans who are already familiar with other frameworks and total beginners who are just getting into front-end development. So that's it for today. Thank you very much. And on to other speakers. Thank you.
That was an amazing introduction, Evan. The migration tool, the IE11 support, the setup, all the RFCs is great to see so much happening, even just from the last month presentation. So well done, guys, for working so hard. Now we're moving on to our next panelist. That is going to be Luke. Luke, take it over. 5 minutes of time.
All right. Hello, everyone. Oh my goodness. That was so exciting. I can't believe it's going to be so ridiculously easy to upgrade to the next version of Vue. Like, this is just blowing my mind. Thank you so much, Evan and the team. Like, whoa. And by the way, if you haven't gone to the SFC Playground yet, definitely check that out. When you're writing code that is sitting right against the left line of your editor, it does something weird to your brain. It's like, this is something that I haven't experienced since I was first learning JavaScript. So really, really cool. Check that out. Yes, I'm talking about Quasar today. And the most exciting thing about Quasar is we're just about to move to Quasar version 2. So Evan mentioned that we're currently in beta and we're just about to move into version 2. And Quasar version 2 means Vue 3 under the hood. This can be a bit confusing because Quasar V2 actually means Vue 3 under the hood, with a few other upgrades as well. And the upgrade is surprisingly simple. Razvan's done an amazing job with the upgrade guide. And we've actually got a video upgrade guide where we have a to-do app that's built to break in as many ways as possible with Quasar version 2. So the idea is the video basically runs you through upgrading that to-do app to Quasar version 2 so that you can experience all of the breaking changes like in a video format. So if you like learning through videos and you find upgrading to be a bit of a drag, then that's definitely something worth checking out. And that's sitting on the upgrade page itself. We've moved to Webpack version 5 under the hood recently. So there were some limitations on Node versions that have been lifted, which is pretty exciting stuff. We were running into a couple of problems there. And we're noticing a much better performance on Webpack 5 as well. We get some loaders by default, like the cache system. And it's also just exciting because now we get to benefit from Webpack 5 features. So modernizing there. A lot's happening in education. So we've recently released quasarcast.com, and this basically, it's basically learning Quasar through videos. And so there's going to be a getting started guide that's going to release around the same time as Quasar version 2. That's going to walk you through building a to-do app, and it's going to hit a whole bunch of the sort of core features of Quasar. So, if you like to sort of if you like to get started by actually building something, then the Quasar version 2 getting started guide will be released soon. So that'll help new people get going. And also a little live streaming. We're going to have an advanced component series. And on top of that, we've also got some podcasts in the mix. So we currently have the Quasar Vue Life podcast, that's just sort of me talking about my life developing with Quasar and Vue. We've also got the Quasar News podcast that will be released around the same time as Quasar version 2. And in a couple of months, we're going to have the Quasar Devs podcast, which will be like interview style podcast with people in the Quasar dev community. So super exciting stuff on that front. Also, Danny Connell is creating, has got a video series where he's creating a real life app that he publishes to iOS, Android, Mac, Windows, and actually monetizes the app through subscriptions as well. So we're getting a whole bunch of education in terms of getting started with Quasar, which has kind of been a bit lacking in the start, but now we're really starting to buff that up, and also some more in-depth stuff that Danny Connell is doing. So big shout out to Danny there. Also, the Quasar plugin for Vite is being worked on. So there's still a few things that need to be ironed out, but I am super excited about that, to be able to create a Quasar docs page or just build something super fast with Quasar and be able to get a dev server up in seconds. Whoa, since when have we been able to do that? So it's been a long time since we've been able to get dev environments up that fast. So I'm super excited for the Quasar Vite plugin. A few exciting other things in the mix, we're working towards moving the Quasar codebase to TypeScript. That hasn't happened yet, but that should happen within the next few months. And many of the core app extensions are being worked on. So Callow will be working on the testing extension soon. So soon after the Quasar version 2 release, hopefully that'll be just around the corner. And Jeff, who built the Quasar Q Calendar UI library, is working on a lot of, he'll be working on a lot of his extensions in the coming months. And if you haven't checked out the Quasar calendar plugin, even if you're not part of like the Quasar community, check that out. It's like insanely cool. This amazing UI plugin that honestly, you could use it to basically rebuild something like Google Calendar, or at least like a lot of the functionality in the UI within like a couple of days. It's just insanely cool. So that's what's happening in the Quasar community. Mostly Quasar version 2 being released just around the corner with Vue 3 under the hood. So yeah, that's my update for Quasar.
That's amazing, Luke. Thank you so much. Nice to see, you guys getting along as well and reaching the Vue 3. Nice to also hear that you're getting support for Vite. I was actually going to ask that. There was one of my questions. While I was typing it, I was like, oh, I covered it. Let's cancel it. So it's great to see that everyone is moving there. So that's fantastic. Absolutely great. Next one up is going to be... Yeah, it's good. The ecosystem is great. Next one up is going to be Daniel. So Daniel, take over.
Hello. It's a rainy, wet day in England, but in Nuxt news, things are heating up. So it's we have 4 or 5 things that are on the verge of being there. So some of which we've talked about before, some of which we are holding back a little bit as a surprise. So I've got to say there's some things coming you probably don't know about. But the things you do, so Nuxt Kit is probably one of the things that's most meaningful, I think, for the community as a whole. So one of the things that makes Nuxt so amazing is the ecosystem we have, modules, integrations, things that are maintained not just by the Nuxt core team, but actually by lots of maintainers devoting their time and making it as wonderful as it is. And Nuxt Kit is our effort to make sure that no matter what happens, as we're upgrading to Nuxt 3, for example, or adding cool new features in the future, modules can continue to work with installations of Nuxt right the way from what we have now to whatever we'll have in the future. So there's always a bit of a cliff edge feeling, isn't there? So Vue 2 to Vue 3, any framework, as we're upgrading to a new major version, it feels like lots is changing. We want that not to be the case for module authors. And so Nuxt Kit is our best effort to make sure that doesn't happen for people, so things can be maintained. So that we're building that. Nitro is our new server rendering framework. So it, along with all the other features of Nuxt 3, is designed to completely disappear when it's compiled or built. So everything disappears. It's your app, optimized, tree shaken, no extra code that you don't need. And Nitro is this new server rendering framework, optimized for edge rendering, for Cloudflare workers, or your chosen serverless framework, or whatever. Even has benefits if it comes to building static sites. So that's lots of fun, and it's actually being used in production at the moment, even though it's not yet released. That's a challenge for us, making sure that we're building it and continuing to support the people who are using it. But that's fantastic. Nuxt 3 and the new Nuxt CLI. Our aim is to make them. Our aim is to target a great developer experience. I think that's one of the things you spot across some of these updates, with things like Vite starting really quickly. And that's something that's true of Nuxt 3. So it starts in milliseconds. Whether you, to be honest, whether you're using Vite or Webpack 5, Webpack 5 has fantastic speed as well, and some people need to use it for all kinds of reasons. But speed is really important. That great developer experience. And I think we're taking the opportunity to take some of the learnings we've got from Nuxt 2 over the years to create some new features. So auto-generated serverless endpoints, for example, or a middleware or plugins that just register themselves automatically. Won't go into all the details. In fact, I've probably spoken too long anyway. Nuxt is coming along. We're currently in the private beta we promised, and we're on track to hit our public beta and release timeline. If you want to find out more about that, we've got an issue on the main Nuxt repo that tracks those dates. But expect great things, and there are a couple of things that will be released on the sooner side. So happy to answer any questions.
That's amazing, Daniel. Thank you so much for the update. Now everyone is thinking about which one of the updates that he couldn't give to us. You cannot do that to a community to say, we got great updates, but some of them I'm not telling you. So, everyone is gonna look around for them. Thanks so much. I will tell on the chat, guys, don't forget to write your questions there. So when we finish the little updates from everyone else, we will also be able to answer questions. But thank you so much for the updates. That was fantastic. Next one up is going to be John from Beautify. So John, take over.
All right, let's go ahead and see if I can get my screen shared. All right, is that coming through?
Yes.
All right, great. So yeah, wanted to give everyone an update on where we're at with Beautify 3. The team has been hard at work, kind of plugging in all of the lessons that we've learned over the past 4 years into creating one of what we believe would be one of the best developer experiences working with any framework on the internet. And the way that we're doing this is we're taking the same flexibility that Beautify has now, where you can create your own implementations based upon guidelines or loose examples that we provide you. But now providing interfaces to use these components in a default kind of way where stuff just works, where you can, instead of having to create a V icon inside of a V button every single time you need to use that, you can just designate it as a prop, because for most people that's going to be good enough. So the idea is, if we have very clean interfaces for existing components that have kind of specifications for how they look in the functionality that they contain from the material design spec, what we're able to do is let the users start getting their foot in the door with, okay, apparently I'm getting a phone call. All right, sorry about that. Okay, so the idea is that we want to make it even more accessible for users to get in and really start making things appear with Beautify. And one of the things that we kind of pride ourselves in general with our components is that the way things structure together gives a lot of flexibility to create some really unique UI. But being able to have kind of a baseline implementation where you can just get started is very beneficial. We, during this process for version 3, we've resolved, as far as we're aware right now, all of the cascading CSS issues. So anyone that's dealt with potential CSS ordering problems in production, that'll be resolved now. We are handling styles and components in a much different manner, which essentially removes that as an obstacle. We've been working on taking some existing properties that over the years have kind of become more expansive. For example, earlier on in development, the button was first released. We had and still do, properties for extra small, small, large, and etc. But as the APIs for components grew, a lot of our Boolean properties, or the kind of Boolean approach that I like to take, especially earlier on the framework, just was creating kind of a bad user experience, because for all intents and purposes, these props, sizing props, or coloring props, they are exclusive. So they are only meant to work with one. So if you, for example, have a card that's outlined and you also raise its elevation, well, the idea is that those two props affect the same styling, and because of that, they would cancel each other out in a lot of cases. So trying to normalize some properties down into kind kind of more semantic versions of themselves where we can provide multiple different options through one property, kind of, again, making the interface a little bit easier for the user. Let's see. So one of the things that people have been asking a lot about is upgrading to version 3. So we're really excited to let everyone know that between our ESLint plugin and an upgrade script that we're working on, very similar to at least an older version of it was like a Vue upgrade program where it'll scan your code base and tell you some things that are probably wrong so that you can quickly upgrade. And so from moving from version 2 to version 3 with Beautify, beyond the normal changes that you would have to make just to convert your application to Vue 3, everything Beautify, about 90%, 95% of it will be automated. So the process for all users should be relatively simple. And one of the other things that we're going to have in addition to that is a very, very extensive list of every single change made that could possibly affect your application for situations in where maybe you use custom styling for a component that the class name we ended up changing, so it no longer works. So trying to make sure that our upgrade process is as smooth as possible. And as it stands right now, again, we're looking automated all the way up about 95% of your application. And to kind of wrap up here real quick, so Beautify 3, we are in alpha, and you currently can get into the alpha using the Beautify CLI plugin, or the Beautify plugin for Vue CLI, and you have options for regular Vue CLI usage as well as Vite support, and you can do that now. If you have a project and you do Vue add Beautify, you can select an option that'll allow you to try out the new alpha directly in your project, so you can give us some feedback. And yeah, I just wanted to run real quick through some of these examples that the user is going to be provided in the newer version. The flexibility to create default implementations with properties where you require no content, but still giving the user the flexibility to expand out and modify specific things. So the idea is we give you the component and say, hey, this is a default implementation, this is how it works. And if you don't like it, you can make your own. And so yeah, we're on track for release in October, and we're going to be starting a beta in June. And so yeah, we're really excited to get it in everyone's hands. We have a lot of really cool new features that could talk about for days. So anyways, that's all for me.
That's amazing to hear, John. Very, very good changes, very good updates. I use Beautify for day-to-day, and everything you mentioned was like, oh, that's great. Oh, that's what I was looking for. That's fantastic. The text was quite small to see the change itself, but if you do have a link or something or a blog post, do reach out. That'll be fantastic. We all have very extra wide monitors, and
that's true. Fair enough.
Yeah.
All right.
No problem at all. Next one up is going to be Maya. Maya, take over.
Okay, so I'm not mute. I trust that everyone hear me. First of all, I don't have any slide, so don't expect any slide from me. And because Daniel just updated about Nuxt just a couple of minutes ago, so he completely took over all what I can say about Nuxt. No, I'm joking, Daniel. And so I'm going to talk a little bit about the update from another project that I'm involved in. It's Storefront UI. So you probably heard about Storefront UI. It's the component library for e-commerce building on Vue. And we are going through a very, very heavy performance update to make it compatible with Vue 3. And also to make sure that it will have a better developer experience, including is much smaller component, much easier to understand and much easier to reuse. And of course, it had to be able to be performant and especially on e-commerce. So that's all from my side. Did I take on the 3 minutes?
Yeah, that's a real definition of quick update. That
Well,
was
you know,
amazing.
told me about
It's good.
updates, so
It is
well,
good. It is good. No problem at all.
another thing that I need to correct. I'm no longer working for Cloudinary, so yeah. So,
Oops.
but I'm still the NDA for Cloudinary. So yeah, I still need to work on my Cloudinary module for Next. So the next version of Cloudinary module will also coming up. That will be more performance, faster, and of course lighter.
That's amazing. Yeah, sorry. You know, the tech ecosystem is so quick that by the time someone say yes to speak to a conference and actually joins, things change quite a lot. So I do apologize. Good. So what fantastic update. There's one more left, and it's going to be Jessica. Take it over.
Hello. Okay, so I'm going to give an update on testing for Vue and the ecosystem. So technically, I'm supposed to work on Vue test utils in my day job, but one of my other teammates, Lachlan, and I, after working on Vue test utils for quite a while for Vue 2 and Vue 3, we kind of saw the problem with testing in the terminal. And so we spun off and joined Cypress to build component testing in the browser, so you can actually see your components work. It uses Vue test utils under the hood, which is kind of cool. So we also get to get paid to commit to Vue test utils, which makes me very excited. So I don't have slides, but I want to very quickly show you what we've been integrating into. So we're in alpha right now. The tool's been out for about 2 years, but like lowly maintained, and Cypress has ramped up and added a core team to it, basically. So we've been in alpha for quite a long time, but it's fairly stable. Will be released in probably by the end of the year, I would say. And so there's a lot of active development going on for Cypress component testing. And the reason I'm talking about it is because we have good Vite support, which just cannot have because of ESM modules or ESM. So it's one of the only testing solutions that can handle Vite and Vue 3. And so that's mostly why I'm excited about it. Is we use it internally actually at Cypress. I'll show you our design system in a second. But yeah, we use it internally at Cypress to Vite, and it actually works with React too. So we get to use the entire new fancy tools ecosystem. We also have Webpack 5 support, Webpack 4 support, and Webpack 5 is a lot more performant. To Daniel's point, like it makes a big difference. So if you haven't upgraded, you should upgrade. Okay, so I want to show you very quickly the other two things we've been doing is we've been integrating into the core Vue ecosystem. So we're writing tests for Beautify to test out, to put a very heavy component library through our system. It's a really good way to prove that it works at scale. And then we've also been writing tests for Chakra UI's next version, which is built in Vite. So we have both a very heavy Webpack project and a very heavy Vite project that we've integrated to in the Vue community. I'll show you Chakra's test suite. So let's share screen. And all right, let's see if this works. Okay, so we're gonna go into infinite loop. So here's Chakra's test suite, and it's pretty cool. It's somewhat beefy, and you can very quickly start to test things like an alert and that it renders its children properly, maybe with an icon. In this one, we test that we eventually render an SVG inside of it, which is this little eye button or eye image. So it's a pretty cool way to quickly validate. Here we have a composable actually, use popper. And it allows you, so it renders the popper, and then when it's done, it lets you play around with it. And so that's kind of the value add All of this uses Vue test-utils under the hood. This is a Vite-backed app, so Vite is actually running in the background. It's pretty quick, relatively speaking, to do a lot of work. So it's using real browser events. And if you had something on top of this button and you couldn't click on it, like if you had a modal on top of it, you wouldn't be able to pass the test, which is a big difference from Vue test-utils in Jest. And that's mostly the environment, not Vue test-utils. It's just that we're running in a browser. We have smarter assertions. So it's really cool. If you want to get started with it, you can go to a link I will put in the chat. And let's see, was there anything else? Yeah, I think that's it. There was a question in the chat about Sass and Vue and Vite compatibility, which I think I'll answer later. We've had Vite compatibility for quite a few months. I think 2.5 months, maybe 3 months. So most of component testing, like the core guts of it, is actually just working with bundlers. So we've gotten to know the Vite dev server quite well. So I can answer any questions about like Windy CSS, which is the Tailwind implementation for Vite, as well as just general build setup. So I think that's what I have. Let's see. I don't think I'm missing anything. Yep.
That's good. I think you covered your 5 minutes perfectly. And it was, nice to also see a little demo. So surely any links or anything else will be fantastic for people to actually hear that. So just to let you know, guys, you may notice that Evan has left the state of Vue, yet to go to other needs, but the rest of the core team is here to answer, and any question will be more than welcome. So we finish off with the updates, guys. So everyone has given an update. It has been fantastic. So I joined the last state of Vue, where there was still a bit of uncertainty and still discussion and everything. Now things are really seems to be moving towards the direction of modern and future. So we've all heard yesterday the news about IE11 support stopping. And I know the last time we spoke, it was the time where we decided, okay, no more IE11 support. So just going around, have you guys had a chance to chat with your community? For example, John, you guys also mentioned that you were dropping IE11 for the new version of Beautify. So what has been the community reaction of the fact that the Vue 3, for example, was going to handle 11 and Beautify and so on and so forth?
Happy. Because, I don't like IE11, so I don't want it. And I'm going to be using Beautify probably more than most people, so I don't want to deal with it. So everyone else gets to enjoy that cavalier decision by me.
Someone had to take someone had to start it. And any updates from the Vue community?
Well, all I can say is I'm interacting pretty heavily with the community on the Discord, on Twitter, and other media. And so far, I don't really get many people that are feeling bad about this. There are, of course, some edge cases where people are running their apps on some special Windows version. I think the article that was released yesterday also mentioned that it is retired on most Windows 10 releases. So there are still some special releases that are still having IE11 running. But I think at some point you have to make the decision whether or not the maintenance burden is worth it. And when even Microsoft is doing what it can to kill it, we shouldn't stand in the way, I guess.
No one is going to stand in the way. I think next year we're going to have the biggest rave party on the day IE11 is, the day IE11 is going to retire everywhere in the world, same time, same place. We open a nice...
Yeah, that should really be a holiday for developers.
So funny story, when we dropped IE11 support at my old job, I ordered a piñata, a custom-made piñata from Etsy, and then we beat the piñata just shaped like IE. It was very therapeutic, and we did have a party. Highly suggest.
Oh, that's amazing. That's absolutely brilliant.
I think we should celebrate it every year, and developers all over the world can take a day off. Happy IE11 died day or something like that.
I
Well,
wouldn't be surprised if much is going to come up on Google,
Yeah.
where every day
in my
they
team,
Google
there's
and say,
in my team there was the first thing they put when we talk about the browser and what the target or the browser we aim to, they put a very big sign say IE11 no support, and we're working for Microsoft, so yeah, it's funny.
amazing. That's
Yeah.
great. So it's really nice to see moving forward. It's been a really a big blocker for quite a few years, even for package maintainer and other people. It was quite complicated to do the to support we've seen with Vue 3 the whole rewrite of the render, and then you still have to support proxy. It was a big decision, so I think it really is going to speed up. So come on, Vue 4 coming up next, I think. No, I'm just joking. Even it's not yet. So I was just joking. It's a joke. So next up is Jessica. You mentioned already that there was a question in the chat. So someone asked, what will be the involvement? What will be necessary to actually run something like SaaS on Vite? So what is the support and what is the flow there?
I love this question because the answer is nothing. It just works out of the box, and so do CSS modules. So if I were to show you our design system code, which uses Sass and CSS modules, zero code necessary. There's an inline CSS object that you can use if you want to specify post CSS config, but check out what's the link to it? I'll post the link to it for CSS on the Vite docs, but you'll just be so surprised. You're like, oh, all of my styles work out of the box. So,
well, you surprised me with the answer. I was expecting, it's easy, just 25 imports, so that's fantastic. Then there's a question for you, John, on Beautify. Would it be possible, someone asked if it would be possible to actually just use specific component instead and have to use the Vue app, so the wrapper and
Correct. So that's actually it's another really big aspect of the new version. So number one, there is no more scoped helper utility classes. So there is no requirement for Vue application. It only serves as a soft entry point to use the layout. It is mainly semantic. You can now import a component by itself and have all of its styling work regardless of wherever it's at. And in addition to that, every single component has been decoupled from any form of utility classes. So now you can disable all of the Beautify utility classes if you want. You can hook in your own or a different set if you'd like. And even on top of that, because of our new theme system, you can easily apply whatever changes to make your application look like Bootstrap. You can integrate with Tailwind and use all their stuff without having any risk of conflict with existing styles. And so if you want to use the Beautify calendar, which may not be as I have a rule about peer dependencies. Left pad kind of ruined me, if anyone remembers that. But if you want to take something like the Beautify calendar, which is basically a nice little skeleton for you to plug in data and have fun, you can just pull in that one component, and everything will still work the same as if it were an entire app. Everything will be tree shaken automatically. Your styles will be automatically tree shaken. And we are also currently in talks of adding functionality to the Beautify loader, which would allow us to target context-specific styling. For example, V bottom navigation styles a V button differently than what V button would be styled on its own. So we're going to be adding the ability for us to also, I don't know if we're going to integrate with Purge CSS, but to be able to purge those context-specific styles at runtime as well. So the absolute smallest bundle possible. And we're going to have out of the gate 100 everything on light scores application ready to go. So
that's amazing. That's a very big news. I think some people will want probably to get started with just more components. So it's nice to know that you don't have to learn the whole setup and everything. So it will really be beneficial for people that want to start to use Beautify. So that's a very great news. Also, I could see eyebrows and happiness with when Tailwind was mentioned. So I know that is there are a few buzzwords in the ecosystem now, Tailwind and Bit and so on and so forth. So what has been the adoption of people of Tailwind around for you? What has have you heard anything? What is your idea?
Well, see, here's what we're going for. So the idea is that the implementation of these other design systems is decoupled from their functionality. We are not implementing other frameworks into Beautify. The idea is that all of the Beautify components are by default just a colorless base component or app component within Beautify. I'm of the belief that Beautify components have larger APIs than most standalone plugins. So I don't think that any other framework would have more functionality than us, which means that all we have to do is provide an interface to customize to that design style. I mean, you're going to be able to, with global defaults, completely scale an entire application with one config file that would control everything from your theme colors, automatic generation of text on specific background colors, to automatic generation of layout systems based upon mobile SSR support for no more layout jumps whenever the application loads. So the biggest part of this is that we're wanting to make Beautify, and this is why the integrating with things like Tailwind or Bootstrap are great, because we can take their design styles with our superior flexibility, tried and true functionality, and then let users just say, hey, I don't know how many we'll have by default. We might have a couple that come that we ourselves give out, but the idea is that we're going to encourage and teach the community to be able to make their own. So a user can just go, hey, I want to get, there's a foundation Beautify config, and you plug it in, and everything just looks exactly like foundation. Or, hey, this is a outlined icon theme with all of the inputs are dense, and there's no ripples on buttons. All defined from a config level. Except for the defaults, everything else is runtime changeable with the use of CSS variables. And so the idea is to take away the design aspect and use our functionality and put whatever skin on top of it that you want, and then make some awesome apps.
Amazing. That's good. That's very, very nice. Again, another great update there. Question for the Vue community, for probably you, Thorsten or Jessica. So we, as Evan said, Vue 3 has been actually, it has been released quite some time ago. Time is flying since the pandemic. And since then, it's also been, the use of the composition API. So my question to you will be, if you guys have been close to people using both the Vue 3 and the Vue 2, package that allowed the composition API, what has been the use of that within the community? So are mostly people switching towards the composition API? Are they using it just for advanced component, as some people usually suggest you to, or people still left and still using the class-based component?
Well, you definitely shouldn't use the class-based component. That's all I'm going to say. Thorsten, go for it.
Well, you can use the class-based API with the plugin, but personally, I think most in the team are not big fans of the style, so to speak. I think what we see in the community is a little bit like there are a lot of curious people who are using it for. Usually, what I see is either people don't use it or they use it for everything. In most of the cases, so you don't really find many people that write options API and occasionally drop into composition API. But of course there are these cases, right? And it's valid. It's totally valid to like stay with the composition API. Stay with the options API and occasionally dabble into the composition API just to get your feet wet or to solve a use case where you need to reshare a lot of code. But I think it's just a matter of personal preference at this point. You can write applications with both styles easily. I would like to also pass the question to John and all the other framework authors like Quasar. But I know from John that they are heavily refactoring, or they have heavily refactored their mix-ins to composition API, and so maybe he can share a bit of the experience that this brought.
Well, at the beginning, for me, it was a little bit, at least from a development or a library point of view, converting our mix-ins over to composables was pretty straightforward and easy. And we had already had kind of an idea, long beforehand of some of the things that we wanted to be able to address with this new system that would allow us to avoid, duplication with our mix-ins. And when we started integrating those into components at first, for me, it was a little overwhelming because I didn't have time to go through the Vue 3 docs, right? So I just did my normal and bullheaded through. But then Kale added JSX support, and we've been coding in TSX. And I'm going to tell you something right now. I think it's going to really make a big difference for accessibility of users contributing to Beautify, which has always been one of the larger hurdles due to how we did things. It feels so much more intuitive to work with, and I know there's benefits for a typical application. I haven't really made that with Vue 3 yet, but as a framework, it is just absolutely insanely powerful. I mean, we're going to be able to offer so many things that we required almost kind of hacky workarounds that we found out over the course of years to just work by default with teleport and reactive, provide, inject, and using symbols. Like it's been pretty awesome. I'm not going to lie. It's been a lot of fun.
Good. And Luke, anything else to add as well on your front on the composition API?
Yeah, well, I didn't write the code base. That's all Razvan. So he would have to be here to talk to like using it in the code base itself. But I do know that the Quasar version 2 docs are all using the composition API now. But just like my personal experience starting to use it at work, and I'm using it a little bit with Vue 2 as well, with the plugin, is it was surprisingly easy to not just to get started with, but to get a lot of benefit from. So yeah, pretty much like a lot of the stuff that it's promised. The shareability of code is just this is just bliss. I haven't really got anything else to add on top of that.
I think this is what I wanted to get out, is real life experience of people that actually tried it. Because of course you go and you can see blog posts, mostly all the same. Sorry, you go first.
But at the same time, I still can understand if people want to continue to use options API, and this is still the default that is in the documentation, right? And I even find myself, like when I just open a code sandbox or a fiddle to like quickly dabble down an example to answer someone's question or something, I often find myself intuitively just still write options API because it's just muscle memory at this point, probably. And I don't have any problem with the options API, right? So, but what you have heard from the other folks is just a testament to the way that the composition helps to solve complexity at a scale in libraries that are as big as Quasar or Beautify, and likewise can solve them in big applications. But I think what people probably, my personal expectation is that people will find more and more utility libraries or plugins that offer a composition API interface that they just can try and play with. I also often see people saying use one or the other, and I don't think that's necessarily true. You can perfectly write your whole component in the options API that you need, and maybe you have one plugin that provides a use whatever function, and then just read through the composition API docs once, put the setup function in, use this one function, return its value, and you have basically a mini injection, right? And that's probably something that will get more and more used across the ecosystem, because composition API just offers so much flexibility for writing libraries and providing easy ways to hook into other functionality outside of your component, up the tree or something. I just think the ecosystem will just provide more and more of these solutions, and people will naturally find using them in bits and pieces.
Yeah, it's amazing. I want to see, probably we're going to ask this question over the course of the State of Vue as we go over to next year to see how the community is moving along. It's true that, I used the option API personally, and I'm trying to get over the bend and starting to actually integrate the two. So it's fantastic to hear all, guys. It seems like a very interesting topic, so probably we'll go around even further. So Jessica, have you got anything else or anything you want to discuss there?
Yeah, so listening to everybody, it's I take bits and pieces from what everybody said. So especially for Thorsten, it's like we mix the options API and composition API all the time, because once you need it, you really need it, and you'll know, like you'll have a classic problem where you're like, I wish I could use a mix-in, and it's just not the right tool for the job, mainly because you're sharing these namespaces and it's not clear where data is coming from. So at that point, I always pull out into the composition API, but I generally work in the options API. The one exception I will say is that I really like script setup. It's the day that RFC came out, like I couldn't wait to play with it, and it's really nice. So from a DX perspective, I like using script setup, but day to day, I use the options API. The last thing John mentioned is that for component libraries, it's been really nice to use TSX, and I think that also helps the readability. Once you need to drop down into render functions, like for a recursive component, which something like Beautify needs to do a lot, it's really nice to have something like TSX. And the last bit that I thought was very interesting. Sorry, everybody kept talking and I was like, oh, there's so many interesting things to talk about. The last thing is that in Chakra UI, they do expose a composable, right? They have use popper. And for anybody that's ever built a tooltip or worked with a tooltip, you know how annoying it is to style the freaking tooltip. And so we have this composable, right, called use popper that gives you more fine-grained control over where the popper goes, and that's a great application. So I think the instinct that people will create APIs that let you use composables directly, I think you'll see that for more component libraries.
It's amazing. Thank you so much for the addition. Next up, Maya, any more?
Well, technically, I really like composition API. I mean, I tried, I think about almost 4 months ago, and just starting to try for one of my talk. It's amazing, I must say. It's like, it's like you kind of demo one of the options API, and you are allowed. It's possible for you to actually extract all the logic to another file and then reuse it without creating mixing, like Jessica just said. And also that you have more control over the whole flow, like what to listen. You can create your own hooks, similar to React. So it's much easier for a developer from React to come and understand the composition API than understand the option API in general. It's great, but again, it's not supported if you need to write some kind of like a plugin or some sort of library that have to do backward compatibility, like the Cloudinary module, Cloudinary SDK, then we cannot really use both at the same time. We have to kind of provide both way, and so it's a little bit of duplicate work. But great, I really like composition API.
It's amazing. And Daniel, last one. Any more words on the composition API? Oh, you're muted, I think.
I don't want to repeat what anyone else has said. Obviously, I maintain the composition API for Nuxt, and that probably tells you that I love it. For me, I think the best, the thing that it can help with is mental clarity. So yes, it's true. It can help split code out, but it also means you don't have to sort of pass props down into every helper function that you need, for example. So you can actually get this lovely, simple API that just releases a little bit of brain space, which I think is quite useful. Personally, I've seen that as well. There's an interesting library called unctx, which lets you use composition API patterns in other bits, in other code. So not related to Vue. So you can effectively have this shared context that your helper functions have access to. And then you don't need to think about it. They just are all able to access the same context object. That could be quite fun to explore. But yes, this sort of pattern, I think, is something that helps us think. At least it does me.
That's amazing. That's good. And just with a nod ahead, time is running out. What about testing? Does it actually make testing easier?
I mean, we're kind of agnostic to it. So if I were to look at our use popper right over here in Chakraland, it doesn't matter, right? We just wrap it. Mm-hmm. We use it as a component. So the way you test composables most elegantly, and your tests can act as documentation. And I know that's a trope, but seriously, if you use TSX, it just reads like how you would use it in your template. So the way we test composables is that you create a wrapper component that is basically how you would use it in prod, and you just mount that, and then you test it, and it should behave like you would expect it to happen in prod. So I think people ask us actually pretty frequently, how do you test composables and wrapper components?
Yeah. That's good. Amazing. Good. So, time is kind of running out. We've got 3 minutes left. I think, the one question that I would probably ask, and the one question that we get asked as consultancy when we go and support them in Vue is always, when do you think is the right time to migrate now to Vue 3? Is it the right time now? When is it going to be? So we've heard that Evan say that, from the end of the year, the actual documentation and everything will move back to be Vue 3. Would you say that would probably be a good starting point for very big, if you got a very big application, or if you're starting something today to already start in production with Vue 3? What is your thoughts, guys, around on the matter?
I can go very quickly. Oh, sorry. I would say, yeah, Greenfield project, obviously Vue 3, TypeScript support, obviously Vue 3. That's the big distinguishing factor. If you're working in a larger application, I think you can progressively migrate, maybe, by using Composition API. The plugin, the Composition API plugin. But yeah, that's my two factors, TypeScript, Vue 3, as soon as you can.
Yeah, other than that, we just the migration build that Evan was showing is still in beta, and so we will probably have a little bit of stabilizing in that as well. And also, Evan mentioned that we are backporting a couple of things to Vue 2.7, and during that backport, we can also, of course, enable some optimizations in Vue 2.7 that make the compatibility or the migration build even more effective. So I'd say maybe when the migration build is released, it would be a good time to maybe take a day or two, create a new branch, throw in the migration build, and just try and start a migration for a day or two and see how you're going, and to get your feet wet. But if you are on a really, really large application, then maybe it will be worth holding out until Vue 2.7 is out and you have a even better integration between the two tools. Also, we're seeing still movement in the community also, where people are experimenting how to enable to write a component for both styles and stuff like that. I can't promise that it will always work, but I think there will be a maturity phase after the migration build has been released, and there will additional tooling probably come up to support it even more. So my recommendation would probably be give it a try, take a day or two, and see how far you get. And if it doesn't go quick enough, then wait.
Yeah, that's amazing. I think it's, we had people trying when the Vue 3 came up, and I think the migration tool would really probably support, people in giving it a try. Like you said, make a branch. If it's working quite well, invest a little bit of time and move forward. The fact that we're back-ready migration will also help people that still need all the browser support. So I think the community is really moving towards the right direction. And, I really, time's up now, and I would like to really thank you from myself and the whole community for making a Vue and the Vue ecosystem awesome. It's great to use it every day. It's great to see the progress that we're making. And I'm looking forward for the next event that is going to happen, I think in 4 months, if I'm not mistaken. And, let's see who, we go from alpha to beta to release from an event to another. So really, really looking forward for that. Anything else? Anyone else wants to add something? Last words?
Last words. I hereby declare June 15th, 2022, the first yearly Web Developer Liberation Day. The day that Internet Explorer died.
Yes.
That's
Bring
good.
the
We are
pinatas.
indeed. We're going to have a huge party.
Awesome.
Amazing. And on that note, guys, there's no better note with every developer with a smile on their face to say thank you so much for joining. Join all other events, and thank you everyone for being so great. Bye.
Thank you for having us. Bye.
Thank you so much.
Bye.